The regular season of the NFL comes to an end. Washington secures the NFC least by a landslide thanks to a bench QB. And we host our own awards ceremony. All this and more in 20 seconds. Hey, fellow fanatics, happy New Year's, and welcome to the Average Bros Fantasy Show, sponsored by Football Darts and Fantasy Sports Alliance. As always, I am joined by my average brother, Kevin. Kevin, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing just peachy here. Back from a little vacation over the holiday, all rest and relaxed it, as is Cam Newton, as he showed off in the final week of the season. But all is well. How about yourself?
I'm great. Saints wrapped up the season with a win, and I know they're resting up for Chicago this upcoming week on Sunday. So I'm excited for it. Just hoping that Drew Brees can cap off his career with one more ring. But before we get in, we shall see. But as always, before we get into our show tonight, we would like to thank our broadcast sponsor, Football Darts. Football Darts is a dart game that combines the skill of traditional darts with the strategies of American football. This innovative dart game is played on a uniquely designed multiple target dartboard. And unlike traditional British darts, American football darts is a game that combines both the skill of darts and the strategies of football. It can be played in sports bars, at tailgate events, as league tournaments, or as a leisure activity in the comfort of your home. If you would like to go check out their officially licensed collegiate dartboards, go to footballdarts.com. And if you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe to the show, and follow us on all of our social media outlets. You see here at the bottom of the screen, right there, as well as check out our somewhat new, getting up there in the age a little bit, our website, fsa-fr.com. It's pretty much your gateway to everything FSA related. Check out all the redraft leagues. Check out the redraft league and all the dynasty leagues. Got them mixed up for a second. And, another handy dandy thing is on fsa-fr.com. You can check out Brad, Josh, and Eric on the Empty Wagon Show. They give you their heroes and villains. Actually, I don't even think they're doing it this week, being as the NFL season is done and over with. But at the end of the day, they do give you the NFL news that either me and my average brother fail to see any news that comes up after our show. And then I, of course, give you a ton of comedy. Kevin, I think we got to mix it up a little bit with this show. I think instead of saving it for last, I think we bring it right in. And of course, if nobody knows what we're talking about, we are talking about mine and my average brother's favorite section of this show. It is our top dog section. And for those of you who don't know, basically me and Kevin, over the season, we pick a quarterback and a flex who we think is going to be our top dog for the week. If my quarterback outscores Kevin's quarterback, I get a point. Vice versa. If his flex outscores my flex, we get a point. If we happen to predict the top dog, which means the top scorer for their respective positions, either quarterback or flex, we then get an extra point. Last week, going into week 17, the score was 17-13. And at the end of the season, we crown our champ being me, average Josh, with the score 19-15. Kevin?
I would just like to point out that I get disappointed all year long by the Patriots and by Cam Newton just for him to come back in the final week and not only outscore my pick in Josh Allen, who got benched halfway through the game, but then go in and blow out everybody and be the top dog of the week? Like, could you
Yeah,
pick a worse time to start performing?
yeah, a little too late. Their season was pretty much already done a couple weeks ago. It was a weird lineup though for the top dogs this week. Of course, I forgot to mention that last week me and Kevin did spice it up a little bit, being as he was down by a decent amount of points. We decided to expand the flex position and go with a quarterback, a running back, a wide receiver, and a tight end. I'm not really going to, dissect it too much on who we picked, but if you guys want to find out, you can always go back and look at our previous show. But we decided to pick. So I was responsible for NFC players, and Kevin was responsible for AFC players. So we could only pick players from those respective conferences. And the top dogs for this week, which Kevin just pointed out, Cam Newton, 43.98 points in the AFC, followed by Jonathan Taylor with 42.9 points. And then over on the NFC side, we had Kirk Cousins with 37.8 and Marvin Jones with 37.5. Kevin, I feel like we should have picked something, for the winner to get at the end of the year.
I don't think so. I think I was happy with how it ended. I don't think the prize needs to be given. I think pat on the back, maybe.
Pat on the back and some bragging rights.
Yeah, maybe next year when I win, we can talk about prizes.
Of course, next year we'll see how that goes. Of course, we all know who the average winner is going to be. It's going to be me again. I'm going to go 2-0, 2 rings. 2 rings, unlike the Saints. But it's a pretty quick segment, though. It's really quick. So anything else you wanted to add on?
Yeah, we can dive into it a little bit. I mean, when you talk about how the season ended up and who we saw as the top dogs, week in and week out, where do you see these players moving forward next year? I know that we're going to get into it a little bit, but Cam Newton obviously putting on a show, the top dog this week. Realistically, it's more of a interview game for him as he's looking to leave the Patriots. Guys climbing to the top, and Jonathan Taylor. You think you'll see him as a top dog next season?
Oh, of course, of course. I definitely see Jonathan Taylor being a top dog for more than 1 week next year. Cam Newton, I 100% agree with you. I think that it was hey, I can still put in work when my name is called, and whatever team decides to look at him next season, they'll take this game into consideration. And then just on the NFC side, you had Kirk Cousins with the Vikings. I mean, same thing as Cam, too little too late. I guess it was him pleading his case that he's still the Vikings' choice for a quarterback. And then Marvin Jones with the Detroit Lions. I mean, both teams are kind of they're missing that piece, I feel like. Well, definitely with the Detroit Lions, missing a head coach.
Yeah, I think as we get into it next year, I think that this week was kind of an oddball week. I don't think that you see Kirk Cousins topping the charts at quarterback too much, just because of the way that quarterbacks are favored in the setup with MFL. I think you see a lot of times because he spreads the ball around and the touchdowns are given to Cook on the ground. You'll see him there more like we did early in the year. Again, usually the last week of the season does favor, like you said, those poor matchups, teams that are sitting players. So interested to see how we roll it into next year. And I think that going into next year, we should twist it a little bit more and throw in a fans pick. Have the fans vote on who they believe their top dog is, and pick somebody out every week and try to compete against us and see if they can be any more above average than we have been all year.
Well, I can tell you one thing for sure. It's not hard to become above average with the bar that we set.
Hey, we aim to please.
Well, yeah, that's all we do it for. We do it for pleasure. We're not the guys over in Vegas where we get it perfect every week.
Right. Well, speaking of mixing some things up, I know we have a ton of news to get to here. A lot of different things happen around the league, especially in the coaching department.
Yeah, we have a few teams that are short a head coach, especially over this past week. I believe the number one thing that we've been talking about all season with FSA is Jets finally fire Adam Gase. They believe that was the problem within their team. And I see our stat guy down there. He's pumped up about it.
I'm gonna miss him, honestly. I think he was a great coach. I think that he should stay in the AFC East, and I think you actually give him more responsibility. I think you make him the GM, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Let him run the whole show.
Well, I mean, to be fair, there are a bunch of teams that are in need of a head coach. So just because the Jets fire him doesn't mean that's the end of his career. I could easily see him screwing up somebody else's team.
And you're seeing that perfect with Jason Garrett, Cowboys head coach last year, right?
Yep.
Goes over, becomes an offensive coordinator, and then interviewing for another job again this year. So crazier things have happened.
Yes, sir. Chargers are looking at Jason Garrett for their head coaching job. And just to kind of stick with the head coaches, the spring cleaning that is going on this season, Chargers fire Anthony Lynn. They decided to part ways. Jaguars fired Doug Marrone. So honestly, I think if there was a prime spot for the taking, it's going to be the Jaguars, just because of what a head coach is going to be walking into. I know you were talking about the cap room that they have. They have number 1 overall pick. They have a young, decent team as it is. So
yeah, DJ Shark, a promising receiver. The running back name blanks me.
James Robinson.
Yeah, James Robinson, stud there. You fix a couple of pieces on the defense, get yourself another corner, and then fix the quarterback position, which they're going to be able to do with that pick, and you're right there and primed and ready. I think that as we get into it, and I know we'll hit it a lot in the offseason, we always talk about what really comes with that first overall pick. I mean, you get one great prospect, right? But to get that first overall pick, you have to have been the worst throughout the year, which means you probably have the most holes to fill. And I truly don't believe that is the case this year when you're talking about Jacksonville. I think that falls more to the second overall pick, which is the Jets. If I'm the Jets, I trade back out of that second pick, accumulate a couple more picks, because I think they still believe in Sam Darnold, who's there, still on the younger side. New coaching staff maybe livens him up a little bit. Who knows?
Yeah, I think that's the route they're going. They got rid of their head coach. They got rid of their defensive coordinator, or was it offensive coordinator?
No, their defensive coordinator became the head coach, I believe. Our stat guy could correct us there.
What team are we talking about again? Were we talking about Jets?
Yes, we are.
The Jets defensive coordinator got fired earlier in the year after he made a couple of bad calls. I'm pretty sure that was on purpose, thinking that he was going to get Adam Gase fired so he could slide in there, and they let the defensive coordinator go instead.
Well, yeah, that was a backfire right within itself. But like I said, they're cleaning house. Head coach is gone. Defensive coordinator is gone. Maybe they get some different ideas in there, and they can try and turn it around and make some type of push for a wild card spot. I can't really even bring myself to say that sentence.
I don't know. I think that's going to be as tough as that division has been, and as far as teams 2 through 4 go, I think that it's going to get even tougher, because if you look at Miami, who we're going to bring up a couple of times later tonight once we get into our awards, they are looking to get better and better each year. You're looking at the Bills, who looks like the front runner for the next few years in the division. The Patriots have plenty of cap next year with the 3rd best. So real tough to say what any coach is walking to within that division. It might be the reason why a lot of top name prospect coaches, if you will, are staying away from them.
On to the next thing. I know this has been the focal point for like just about the whole past couple days. Doug Peterson benching Hurts on purpose, or do you really believe his story of what was their backup's name, Sudfeld or something like that?
Yeah, I think that bringing Sudfeld in, as much as he wants to try to cover that up, I think that was a throwaway game, a player evaluation game, if you will, because at that point when Hertz was in there, they still had every chance to win the game. If they convert the fourth down that they went for, they could have even won it on the last play of the game. But I saw a video talking about a lateral move that they could have done, and said they just ate the time off and didn't try anything. And really, that stands true when you look at the players. We've got Wentz, Ertz, and Kelsey all staying on the field for hours after the fact, talking about what might be their last game in Philly. You have Miles Sanders now coming out on live radio and talking to media about how nobody wanted Hurts to come out, that they were that's their guy, that they really stood behind him, and they thought that they could still win that game and be right in it, although he was pulled. I don't know how much is true about players going after Peterson and being in his face about it, but nonetheless, I think that was definitely a almost a forfeiture, if you will.
Yeah, there was a bunch of Giants players bashing him for it because, I mean, that was the whole reason the Giants missed the playoffs. I mean, and if you look at it, you have Philly 14, Washington 20. Those 14 points for Philly both came from Hurts. So if you have one player carrying your whole team and you still want to win that game, why would you pull him out of the game? Right. So that, yeah, so 100% to me, I think it was just a forfeiture. Maybe Doug Peterson just doesn't like the Giants as much as Washington. Who knows?
And I think that stands true by not even suiting up Wentz for the game, right? I mean, you have every chance to go out and win, and you have the guy that you just paid over $100 million to not even suiting up because, quote unquote, the relationship with Peterson is fractured and one of them has to go.
Well, I mean, I know we know that they started to heal that relationship there, and just away from Wentz, I know that there was a couple players talking about getting out of there. We have Ertz possibly going to a different team, and Jason Kelsey possibly retiring.
Yeah, Kelsey has hinted at retirement in the past. And then you've got Ertz, who is on a contract here, but also backed up in a very good tight end in Goddard, who, to me, in my eyes, is almost the better of the two. Plays just as physical. He's faster. Definitely see more yards after the catch with him. Ertz does have the more secure hands. He's been the most reliable target underneath, and that's why they work so well together. But have you stunted Goddard's growth by having that top tight end there? Has he really been needed? Because they haven't used Goddard. This is the most they've ever used him. But with that being said, do they sell high on him? And, now healthy off the injury that he had mid-season, accumulate some, draft capital and move forward away from those expensive pieces, because if you do move away from Wentz, you are going to have to eat some of the money. So a lot of things can be done there, money-wise and for the team, whereas you already have another player to back him up. So it's just not a need for him.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting come, the offseason, following up on all this stuff. One, if they do decide to keep him, and two, just where he would end up. Because we all 100% he's going to get signed by somebody if Philly decides to send him away.
Now, it's talking about Peterson and having a hot seat as a coach. When we look around the league, you've got plenty of other openings too. You've got the Falcons, who fired their coach early in the season. Houston fired their coach. And I know I'm missing one more. midseason
Detroit.
firing as well. Detroit firing Matt Patricia. 3 more spots that because the teams played so poorly, even after the interim was put in, I assume all 3 of those will be looking outside of the organization as well.
Yeah, I know a couple of names that people were looking at. There's the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. There's the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. I know some teams are looking at them.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of different teams that a head coach could get a job at.
I know that the Texans have already reached out to the player personnel in New England. Cesario, I believe his name is. That move has been blocked, so they cannot talk to him before the Patriots do, before the season ends. But the word that had come out is that it looks very promising that they could still make that move, just not in season while the Patriots don't know what they're doing within their own team.
Yeah, like I said, there's a bunch of different openings here. Like I said before, we had Jason Garrett being an interest for some teams. I know Chargers and Jaguars were fighting over Urban Meyer, possibly coming out of retirement.
I'm surprised nobody has called what's his name from Michigan to come back up into the big leagues.
He's Jim Harbaugh. Yeah, he is interested.
Harbaugh.
Yeah, he is interested in a NFL spot.
I know that our stat guy would lean against it.
The greatest thing that could happen, and I say this tongue-in-cheek and with all sarcasm in the world, is for Adam Gase to go down to the college ranks, Jim Harbaugh to come up to the pro ranks, Harbaugh go to the Jets, and Gase go to Michigan. That would just make my life so wonderful.
Well, I was going to ask you messed up that too soon there. What your thoughts were at? I mean, he's got NFL experience. I mean, his brother's doing well, played in a Super Bowl. Why not bring him back?
He already screwed up one team, so he's got to screw up the other.
I think he was a product of good circumstance when he was the coach in San Francisco. He has proven that, and it can't be all on him, right? So in the college, you have the better recruiting the kids and stuff like that. It's not all on him. But to see the downfall over the last 2 years of Michigan, it's sad to see. Having him come back to the pros, maybe. Is he a better developer of a quarterback than Adam Gase was? Maybe, because we also know that Gase's skills were masked because of who he already had there as a quarterback. When you have Peyton Manning there, Peyton Manning is the offensive coordinator there. Gase just happened to be in the spot when it happens, right? So can he come in and still bring Sam Darnold along? I don't know. I'd still like to see Eric Bieniemy there. That's in my heart. I think he was one interviewed at Houston already. I think is one of the spots that he's already gone to and interviewed. I would hate to see him there as much as I want to see him go to New York.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a full-on carousel that heats up pretty quick. As we know, most of those spots are usually filled as soon as they are available after the Super Bowl because of the turnaround time before you get into the draft. So all of them should be answered pretty quickly. And probably most notably is the Jets, honestly, because of the situation that they're in with their pick. Everywhere else having slid further back, it's more of just a change of pace type of thing, not a full-on rebuild, especially when you're looking at a guy like Anthony Lynn, who my guess will probably go be a defensive coordinator again someplace. I would love to see him in New England. Definitely an older mind, been around a long, long time, so probably just was doing it to taste it out just because he had been offered it so many times. So see where that goes. But if you talk about teams like the Chargers or Houston, you've got Deshaun Watson was the passing yard leaders this year, even after Bill O'Brien traded away his best weapon. So, everywhere else outside of the Jets is probably good enough to be an 8-8 team right in the middle of the road with a couple of weapons, could do well. The Jets is probably going to be your biggest swing to watch in my eyes.
Hey, speaking of, older minds who have been around the league for, a decent amount of time, Larry Fitzgerald possibly retiring. Do you think it's time for him?
Yeah, I think you got to put him up there. At least bare minimum top 10 greatest receivers of all time. Full 17 years in Arizona. Great career there. Probably one of the highest receptions to target ratios in the league. I believe it was said that he's had more touchdown passes than he's had drop.
Yeah, I believe it was more.
Some crazy
stat guy
Go
here.
ahead.
He's had more tackles in his career than dropped passes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was like 24, something minuscule, 40, like 24 tackles to 23 drops, something like that. I knew it was crazy stat. Definitely going to the Hall. Another guy up in the same talks is Frank Gore, talking about coming back for his 17th season. I think probably just to play with his son, or at least be in the league with his son, who I don't know if he is declared eligibility for the draft yet, but it's coming most likely. So we'll see how that goes. See if he stays a Jet. See if he continues to be journeyman and is a workhorse someplace else.
So Larry Fitzgerald, if he was to retire today, 1,432 receptions. That's second on the list, but obviously behind Jerry Rice.
Yeah, right.
17,492 yards, second on the list behind Rice, and 121 touchdowns, which is sixth. So I think that even if he was to call it now, that it would have been an amazing season. The only thing I could see him coming back for is if he wanted the receptions list, but not really. I don't know. It's not really all that.
Yeah, I think especially with the way that that team is trended, right? Because now you have DeAndre Hopkins there, so it's kind of a passing of a torch. Then you've also got a quarterback in Kyler Murray, who's got legs and can run. You've got two decent running backs in Edmonds and
Drake,
who if they can stay healthy, and B, fix their turnover issues, can wrap that team up pretty nicely to where you go out in this year's draft, you pick up one other young stud at the wide receivers position, and you're good to go. Plus, later in the year, they got their tight end in the mix a lot. Dan Arnold, I believe, is his name.
Yeah. Oh, he was a Saint.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Damien chimes in with us and says Fitzgerald finishes his legendary career with the numbers that you had projected to us. 14,000 receptions, 17,000 yards, 121 touchdowns, 11 Pro Bowls, 1 first-team All-Pro, 2 second-team All-Pros, Walter Payton Man of the Year, Art Rooney Award, and the greatest Cardinal to ever play. I would probably say that is also true.
It would have been more impressive if he had at least one ring to take with him into the Hall of Fame, but we know not everybody's fortunate enough to get 6 rings.
Well, that brings up another player. You talk about the game against the Steelers. Ben Roethlisberger, the youngest quarterback to win a Super Bowl at that time, beats him. Do you think that he contemplates retirement this year?
How old is Roethlisberger? Is he?
Well, he's up there. He's same age as Rodgers. Came out that same draft.
So about 37, 38. I could see with the way that they're playing, with the way that they're playing, they have a young team. I think that he could possibly come back for one more. However, if they do end up winning the Super Bowl, I believe that he pulls a Peyton Manning and retires after that, just to go out on that high note. But like I said, it depends on if they get far into the playoffs.
Ben Roethlisberger, 17 years of NFL experience, 38 years old now.
38.
Yep.
Yeah. So with the age that the quarterbacks are at now, I could easily see him coming back for another one.
Well, my only issue is he's already contemplating retirement twice now. And if you look at the way that he was after the 11 straight games, 11 wins, great, yeah, that's awesome. But if you look at games 12, 13, 14, where the man could barely stand. I mean, you were literally watching him wince over, hold both his knees in the huddle, just because he can't take it anymore, being that wrecking ball type quarterback or brick wall of a quarterback, I should say, where he's known not to go down, and they're always going to send two guys after him because of it. So I think just the abuse, I don't know if he can stand another full season. And I doubt that his pride would let him go anywhere to be a backup.
Yeah, I think that if he was to come back for another season, I mean, it would be if they got knocked out and he wanted to make one more push, or if, the Steelers, they tell him like, hey, we need you for one more. We're going to get a quarterback that we think will, you can hand the torch to afterwards, but we need you to train him up to that point. So I think that if he came back for one more, he would just be as a coach and they wouldn't expect much of him.
Exactly. That's one of the players we always talk about. What type of players make the best coaches? And it's usually that field general player that goes in, you work him up as a quarterback's coach and, move him into an offensive type role. You don't usually see it too much, but it has worked out in the past. You look at guys like Jason Garrett was a quarterback. Doug Peterson was a quarterback. There's plenty throughout the league that have made it up the ranks, having started out with that type of success. So it will be interesting to see.
And just to finish off what I at least have for our NFL news section, Josh Jacobs arrested for a DUI. I mean, they're not in the playoffs, so not like he's missing any games. But what do you think that happened? Go ahead.
He can be suspended next season at the front end.
That's what I was going to go for. Do you think he gets suspended? Do you think there's any type of repercussions from it?
If I look at the history of the league on the first offense of something like this, I'm probably going to say 0 to 2 game suspension. Either it's just heavy fines because it's never happened before to him, and he's not really a troublemaker, if you will. There wasn't much out of college about. He didn't have a mark on his name, right? There was nothing to say, hey, watch this guy. At least that I know of. So usually they're a little bit more lenient on the first go around. I say at most because there was charges brought to game suspension, but it was a DUI, which the league again has been more lenient on. It wasn't anything like a domestic violence case or anything like that to where they have to take a harder stance on it. As you look throughout the league, they usually tend to let these things slide because obviously it's not a banned substance, being alcohol or anything like that.
They're just going to say he needs to Uber to practice.
I'm pretty sure he can hire a driver.
He probably already does. It's probably like the one time he takes his own car out and he gets caught with a DUI.
Well, yeah, I believe he was. It was at an airport that he got into a wreck. So I don't know where there's more cameras at than an airport. So bad timing there, bud.
Exactly. Do you have any more news for us, Kevin?
I believe that is it on my end. Stat guy, anything from you?
It's funny. I saved a lot of stuff this week through my Instagram account. That way I could bring it up either on the show with you guys tonight or on the Fanatically Real broadcast tomorrow night. And for whatever reason, it decided it wasn't going to save all of those really cool things that I thought I was saving this week. Couple things, since you're talking end of the season stuff right now, we're talking awards and all of that. You had already brought it up that Deshaun Watson did finish with the most passing yards this year, and I feel kind of quietly that he did that, like you said, without his biggest weapon. Surprised me when I saw this that he was trying to do the math here, 83 yards ahead of Patrick Mahomes, who was number 2. Brady, number 3. Take a guess who number 4 was?
Josh Allen.
No.
Allen was 5.
I know. I was gonna let Kevin guess it because I have it right in front of me.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Matt Ryan. So
Matt Ryan's always up there, especially as of late when he's had a slew of running backs go down through injury or just poor performance. So, and then you look at, we talked about an okay, just below average on a, non-name recognizable season out of Julio. And not a typical Julio season, but you look at the opposite, way, huge improvement from a guy out of Calvin Ridley. So not really surprised to see his name that high up.
Russell Davis, too, I think really stepped up when, Ridley kind of had to take more of that Julio role. So, yeah, I think they had really good out of the wide receivers adding to Matt Ryan's numbers. And then still sticking with stats for the end of the year. We all know King Henry was the rushing leader for the year, but the number of yards he was above the number 2 guy is what really blew my mind tonight when I looked at this. 470 yards ahead of Cook as the number 2. And then, believe it or not, Jonathan Taylor was number 3. Also, I feel like very quiet, like a Matt Ryan at 4 was, but even then he was 398 yards behind Dalvin Cook even, which puts him a whole, still trying to do the math here, like 860 yards behind Henry, and he's the number 3 guy.
So Matt
Derrick
Ryan.
Henry. Go
ahead, Kevin.
No, I was going to say Derrick Henry becomes the first player ever to have 2,000 yards rushing at every level. He had two 2,000-yard rushing seasons throughout college. All 4 years of high school, he had over 2,000 yards rushing, and now again in the NFL.
I think I saw a stat this morning somebody sent out to the GroupMe chat group. It was, I think it was Derrick Henry's senior year of high school, his stat line for every game. Wasn't really impressed with everything except for the number of touchdowns the senior year. He had like 55 rushing touchdowns or 55 touchdowns. I don't know if they were all rushing or not, but pretty impressive.
So I was looking here. So Matt Ryan has been in the top 5 for passing yards since 2012, with the exception of, I believe it was 2017. 2017, he wasn't in the top 5.
That's one of the reasons you draft him in fantasy. Yep, Damian backing us up on that, saying his senior year of high school at over 4,000 yards and 55 touchdowns. Pretty impressive.
Oh my goodness! It's like
you
a
would have to think you would have to think that the amount of carries has to be 80% and all long runs.
I saw a lot of those games. He had 30+ carries too. So, I mean, you don't see that kind of stuff in the NFL anymore, right? 20 carries, you're kind of on a pitch count, and he's running 30+ in high school.
Well, that was actually something funny enough to bring that up. We talk about pure numbers and how to pad things, and when you're starting to game plan things and getting in the minds of coaches, we put it in the realm of Madden, and we talk about esports being a big thing, and you're actually putting yourself in the coach's seat, and you move forward. And we were messing around, and I made a running back. I said, my offensive line is amazing. I'm running the ball 30 carries a game. Is that realistic? Could I actually do this if I was an NFL coach? And so, Derrick Henry is the exact type of player that you look at pulling that off. About the only one.
So, I'm going to say that no, it's not realistic, because if you've ever played Madden with Kevin, and whenever he creates a player, so when you think of running backs, even Derrick Henry is out there as a running back. Kevin's running back was like 6 foot, so around Derrick Henry's height, but I kid you not, his biceps were as big as my head. It was just, and then he's got like these like toothpick legs. It was ridiculous.
And was that on purpose when you build him that way?
Hey,
Yes.
well, yeah. I mean, he's got to secure that ball somehow.
Mind you, he's got these big arms that he's lugging around, and he makes his player like one of the fastest running backs in the league.
Hey, gotta win somehow.
Well, you didn't win against me.
We weren't going to bring that part up, but
well, you wanted to bring your just
now
unreal guy into this.
Here's a question: when we talk about running backs like your Derrick Henrys, who are running the ball anywhere from 20 to 30 times a game because he can, how does that look longevity-wise when we see the same thing have been done to a guy like Todd Gurley, and we know the story that happens there? Same type of player, rush right up the middle, fizzle out towards the end of seasons, and obviously two different times he blew out his knees. So what does that look like for the King?
I think empty wagon guys have said it a couple times on the show over the last couple of years. Henry gets better as the season goes on, right? So grab you a Derrick Henry when it's playoff time, because we know that he's going to be good at the end of the year. The difference this year versus the last couple of years was he was good all year. He didn't really have any real down weeks, right? He had a couple, but it wasn't like we're used to seeing where he's ramping up and at the end of the year is when he's strong. He was just strong all year. What does that look for a guy? We want to try to do comparison to a Todd Gurley or something like that, but everybody's different. Who knows? I mean, he could continue doing this for the next couple of years. He's already outlived his prime in the NFL already anyways. So who knows? And on top of that, now we're putting postseason play on him, right? What does it look like in the postseason? Now we're adding more carries on before we go into 2021. So
now, do you think it's beneficial that when you look at guys that have had successful games, like individual games running the ball, your Dalvin Cooks, who was the top scorer 3 weeks in a row as far as a fantasy standpoint, and then obviously equates to good games in the NFL. Your Derrick Henrys, obviously over 2,000 yards, pairing them with a top-tier receiver. You have two top 10 receivers with the Vikings, to where you can take a game off, 2 games off if you want. And then you've got A.J. Brown with Tennessee, who obviously has had games, pair him with a Corey Davis. They blow up, and Derrick Henry has taken games off. He's just matched that with ridiculous, 200-yard, 4-touchdown games. So, how does that compare that way, in saving themselves versus if you look at what Gurley did, and there was no real off game. Everything was, 100, 150-yard games for him.
We always talk about negative game script or positive game script. Your positive game script, you're running the ball, right? But how was Tennessee getting themselves into positions for the positive game script? Was it Tannehill to his wide receivers, or was it Henry putting them in that spot? Okay, so then what does that look like when you're in a positive game script, when your running back has put you in that place? Do you take him out? Who does Tennessee have behind Henry that they can put in there, though, once they hit that positive game script stuff? And if you're still passing the ball on third down, or if you're still putting yourself in those long situations, second and long, do they have the ability to throw, quote unquote, at will to be able to get that first down so they can run first, pass second kind of thing? I don't know. Everybody can speculate and theorize and whatever. I don't think we really are going to know until he finally hits that wall and we see what year it is. And all of the experts are out there are going to say, there it is. That's what we've been waiting for. We knew it was going to happen. Yeah, you knew it was going to happen, but nobody knows when that's going to happen, I don't think.
Well, that's what we talk about with Tampa Tom and facing time. Everybody wants to be the first one to predict when his fall off is going to be. Every year you get the guy that says, "Oh, he's not an elite quarterback anymore. Oh, he's going to retire this year." And every year, and equates right back to fantasy. I picked up Tom Brady in 3 different leagues in the 4th, 5th round as the, probably in that 12 to 14 quarterback range after they've already made runs. You're looking at guys like Dak, Kirk Cousins going before him. Some people taking a flyer on Daniel Jones being better than him, and guys taking that next step up. Carson Wentz going over than him. And you look, Brady finished at the 7th best, averaging almost 25 points a game, in the top 5 for passing yards. And obviously, we know that the chemistry thing there didn't come on until late. So,
and you and I had a long conversation about this the other night as we're discussing scorings, for FSA for next year. And the way you presented it to me was brilliant. When you really look back about a Brady, as much as we want to write him off, when is he going to finally hit that wall? The way you explained to me the other day is great. I mean, for the value that you got for him and where he finished to where you drafted him among the other quarterbacks worked out really well for you this year. I mean, can't fault you at all. Damian says here, even with so many yards over the second guy, Cook, he still finished 3rd in PPR formats, and that's why he doesn't get drafted as high as you would think in fantasy leagues. And he's right. I think Cook or Henry went pretty high in about every single one of our leagues in our regions this year, and we kind of poked fun at every single one of the guys that did that because of the PPR format. But he performed at that level where he was drafted, if not better.
Yeah, when you talk about looking at the different types of players, and this is across the field, it's more so relevant when you're talking about quarterbacks and tight ends, because in most leagues, you either only have to start one or only can start one. I see all over the place that people try to say, don't draft a quarterback before the 6th round. Go all skill positions first as your flex spot. Take your running backs and quarterbacks, or your running backs and receivers early, and then wait on a quarterback, and then you see a run happen, and you see you'll see your typical 2 guys in the top round. I believe this past year, you're looking at your Mahomes, your Lamars, and maybe in the 12th pick, Deshaun Watson, and then not really much action in the 2nd round. Maybe that's where you'll see Kyler Murray go. And then the 3rd round, it starts to heat up. But people wait and wait and wait because they try to stand by that point of, you don't take a quarterback till the 6th round. Well, I look at that as more of a false positive. Yes, you can wait on a quarterback, but you still have to take one of the top 12. So if there's a run on quarterbacks, you can wait until you get that perfect sweet spot in the 3 to 4 rounds, where this year it was Josh Allen who finishes, top 3, but was probably taken 5th or 6th best, out of all quarterbacks, because I don't have to compare him in that round as the best player. I have to compare him just at the quarterback level because I have to play one.
Josh, you've been awful quiet. We've kind of taken the show over.
I've been listening. Just sitting here.
But I did notice, and we sat here before the show and talked, and I didn't notice it until just before you guys went live with like 11 seconds left to go on the clock. All of the new things that you've got on the wall behind you now. It looks good back there.
Yeah, I'm starting to spice it up a little bit.
I do like it.
I'm getting jealous of the whole setup that you got going there.
I will tell you, this was a 2-day project with 4 different room changes before we got this. It was a long process.
Speaking of spicing things up, we have the rest of our show as we digress a bit there on the news. And we get into the title of our show, our 2020 awards, as we look across the league, both NFL standings and as a fantasy standpoint, as we give out who we either predict would you get it or who we would prefer win these awards, and a little bit of an explanation on them. Josh, why don't you kick us off?
So kicking it off with the I'm booting your title out of here with my title, and I titled it the 2020 FSA Average Award Ceremony to emphasize how average these picks are. So don't hold us to perfect standards here. But kicking it off, I believe, do you want to go with MVP first, or you want to work up to that point?
We can start with MVP.
Okay, so MVP, I'm going with somebody who obviously led the NFC, took the number 1 seed. As much as it pains me to say it, I'm going with Aaron Rodgers for the MVP award. 70.7 completion percentage, first in the NFL. First in the NFL for 48 touchdowns. First in the NFL with only 5 interceptions. And I believe he tied with Burrow and Minshew, but both of those played. Burrow only played 10 games. Minshew only played 9 games. Rodgers played a full 16. And then finishing it off with 4,299 passing yards, which is 7th compared to Deshaun Watson's 4,823. I see. Once I saw that Damien was here, I'm like, oh my goodness. I was like, can I just change it to Mahomes or anybody else? But, like I said, I give respect where respect is due, and he did earn it this season. So congrats to him.
For me, I look at the award and see how it's been played out. And, for me, I'm all about the boom guys. I look about projections and where the league is going and, how much have they improved. For me, Aaron Rodgers played as Aaron Rodgers should. Nothing really stood out to me compared to season over season for him. As we look at last year, there was no drop in Mahomes' numbers from the year he won the MVP, moving to Lamar. Lamar was just a shiny toy. So this year, I got to go with the new shiny toy in Josh Allen, stepping up into the ranks and proving himself to be a top-tier quarterback, leading the Bills to their first division win in, I believe, since the mid-'90s. That guy can correct me there, but kudos to him and what they've done, and and getting all the right weapons there to make him as successful as he has been.
So I completely agree with you. I really do like what the Bills have with Josh Allen, and like you said, he is still young, and just with how he's been playing, I don't see any falling off from his stat line, and not just his, but Stephon Diggs beside him too. I could easily see the Bills. I could easily see the Bills running the AFC East for quite some time.
Yeah, Damien says that he thinks that Allen has a better case to win the MVP than Mahomes, and I think that just lends right into the boom theory. Right, is usually it's given to a quarterback. The MVP award is, and usually it's given to the biggest name at the time. We know Mahomes is a big name, but he's kind of old news now. He's been doing this, for the past 3 seasons as far as this top tier performances go. So it's not anything that everyone is looking at, week in and week out. As we look at what Josh Allen's doing, it's big, big long touchdowns to Diggs. It's multiple long run rushing touchdowns with his legs. It's something that he didn't do the year before, and has put him statistically in the top 5. So I think that lends well in his favor.
Who do you have for your Offensive Player of the Year award?
As I look at quarterback for the MVP, as it usually goes that way, the Offensive Player of the Year award usually goes to the best player who is not a quarterback in most cases. Just as you see, like a CMC last year with his 1,000 and 1,000. I'm going to combine those 2,000s and go with Derrick Henry, 2,000 yards rushing, a huge feat, especially to have success all season long, as we already mentioned, and to not really have a phase of his game that has broken down at all or shown signs of falling off the charts or anything like that. So for me, it's King Henry.
Yeah, it was hard to go down the list, and because I noticed you took Derrick Henry, so it's hard to kind of come up with a second place to that, because we all know that Derrick Henry was obviously number one for Offensive Player of the Year. He's most likely going to get it for the actual awards, but I'm gonna go with your right hand man in your MVP, and I know I brought him up earlier. I'm gonna go Stephon Diggs. First in receiving yards with 1,535, first in receptions and 127, 8 touchdowns, which puts him at 15. And speaking of Devontae Adams led with the touchdowns with 18, and he was second in yards per game with 95.9 behind Adams.
Now, Damian brings up a good point that he did what Adams did, Adams did what he did in 13 games. Does that complete season play a factor when you're talking about your MVPs and the people that you give these awards to? Do you have to kind of prove that you can do it all season long and not have injuries, although when on the field he did perform?
Yeah, I think that injuries do play a lot into getting an award at the end of the year. Because if you have somebody who misses a game or two with injury, then immediately I think that kind of hurts his stock in getting an award. But somebody like Derrick Henry, who's pretty much been healthy all season, and obviously putting up the numbers that he has put up, puts him in prime position to get it.
Well, I think that just lends itself to the way the league is played. It's really, what have you done for me lately? So as soon as you take one game off, it lends to being forgotten and overshadowed by the next big thing in the next game. So I think that although Devontae Adams has had a great year, I think it's kind of overshadowed by his own team. If you're looking at Rodgers and Jones at the running back position and having those missed games, you kind of forget that he's been this good all year with having a gap where you didn't really see his name on the screen.
Yeah, it's kind of like how I know throughout the season when we were, highlighting the Steelers being like 11-0 at the time, nobody really knew that the Chiefs were, I believe, 10-1 at that point. So it's kind of like, okay, well, we expected it from you, so it's not really any big news. But the Steelers, it was more big news because nobody really thought it would have happened.
Yeah, and speaking of big news and big names and not really expecting a player to perform at the level they are, is my rookie of the year, Justin Jefferson, with the Minnesota Vikings. Plenty of receivers taken ahead of him. If you look at the guys of the likes of Ruggs and CeeDee Lamb and Judy, all underperforming compared to Jefferson. Kudos to him. I think that putting himself in his first year over the likes of an Adam Thielen, who went hand in hand. I believe they both ended up finishing in the top 10 as far as receivers go. And if you pair that with a solid run game that they have, it's kind of astonishing the numbers that they pulled off respectively, because usually you see one falter when you have such a good run game. But nonetheless, Jefferson is my rookie of the year.
Yeah, I think he was a big surprise coming into the season just because of like the names that you brought up that were said to be above him with, CeeDee Lamb, Ruggs, and Jerry Jeudy. So it was a bit of a surprise to see him in the top 10, let alone having the season that he had. And that kind of brings me into my rookie of the year as somebody who was kind of in the shadow of a more well-known rookie that obviously went ahead of him. And that's going to be Justin Herbert for me. I think that, obviously didn't get to start the season with as a starter, but once he did come on the field, he completely lit it up. He was sixth for passing yards, 4,300, which I believe was second for the rookie record behind Andrew Luck. 10th in passing touchdowns with 31, which beat a rookie record with Baker Mayfield's 27. 66.6 completion percentage, which was 15th. But that at the same time, I mean, yes, it's not top 10, but there's still, 17 starters behind him. that he beat. And then not only, but he had 10 interceptions on the year. But then, like I said, it's not the worst, but it's not the best. And he's still young. He's got the weapons there with Keenan Allen. And, sooner or later, they're going to bring in a new head coach to run the offense with him. So, and then also, it's on a whole separate page, but he also had the most games with 300 plus passing yards for a rookie with 7. So I think that, come next season, he is going to be, I think he does better than what he did this season.
Yeah, I agree with you for the most part there. I think that out of the quarterbacks, he's probably the best off. Obviously, we know that Burrow got hurt and Tua didn't start till late, so not really too much to compare to him. But I have to agree with Damian and his comments saying that Jonathan Taylor is probably second only to Jefferson. You got to remember that when he came into the season, he was the third on the depth chart. You had Marlon Mack there, Mack. Blanking on his first name, for it's actually Marlon, but you had Mack and somebody else who went down. Naheem Hines was there. So both of those guys slated above Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor steps in for injuries and then ends up keeping the job and obviously finishing off the year extremely well. Probably has won that job there starting next season. Will probably be the workhorse there and move away from the committee. So for those reasons, I would have him second and then Herbert third.
Well, we know we do like to have a little bit of a debate. I did like Jonathan Taylor. I just think I just don't know. I just think that Justin Herbert had had a bit of a surprising season, being as just it wasn't expected of him pretty much. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, I knew Jonathan Taylor was going to get the starting spot. That's pretty much what it comes down to. I knew he was.
Well, then we move into players that outside of that either, maybe didn't have a starting spot originally in your lineup. We're talking fantasy wise, or maybe boosted you into a playoff position somehow. Our next award that we're going to give out is our Unsung Hero Award within your own teams. And I will kick it to you to start.
All right. So I think it's a perfect time that we brought him up. So Unsung Hero, I was going to say Jonathan Taylor. And just for pretty much the same reasons that you said, because he came into the season as third on the depth chart and then finished off the way that he did, being third for rushing yards, 7th for rushing touchdowns, and 6th for plays over 20 yards for big boom plays with 7 plays.
For me, I got to look at a guy that was on nobody's radar, probably in most leagues. I would say anywhere from 98 to 100% undrafted, and then in the same case, picked up and owned in 98 to 100% of leagues because of the big injury with the highest average drafted player in CMC is Mike Davis stepping in and saving a lot of teams' seasons, having that handcuff there. I know the empty wagon guys talk about it a lot, handcuffing quarterbacks and their receivers, running backs in certain situations. I know that our own stat guy stepped in and he had CMC and Davis. I know it helped him and his season out. So for me, it's got to be Mike Davis.
Who do you have for your big bust on this season?
Somebody that was drafted high and finished way outside of the top heroes position, if you will, stealing a line from the empty wagon guys. And to be a hero, you just got to be in the top 12. Even outside of that, super flex, outside of the top 24 is Carson Wentz for me. Huge bust on the year, drafted in most leagues. Very big disappointment in him, and can't really blame any injuries in this case. Benched on the back half of the season as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow the same same theme there. Somebody who was drafted high and just kind of fell off the wagon. I'm going with Julio Jones. I know like he was battling injury most of the season, and then also was just in the shadow of Calvin Ridley the whole season as well, finishing 41st with receiving yards, 87th with receiving touchdowns, and 50th for fantasy points, only having 138 points.
So I wasn't sure. I wanted to jump in on this one. The category you guys are going through and the players you've done so well. And I wasn't sure if I was able to jump on this one because of injuries. But since you went with Julio Jones, and this is me poking fun at average Josh a little bit, Michael Thomas.
I knew it. Yeah. I knew it.
Michael Thomas probably being at the very minimum, one of the top 3 wide receivers taken this year. Yeah, played with a lot of injuries and stuff like that too. However, definitely got to be a bust. Can we say CMC was a bust because of an injury? I don't know. The injury was early, and we knew it was going to be season long whenever it happened, right? But what does that look like for a Michael Thomas? And I'll dip back out again.
Yeah, I think that CMC is safe in the bust category because I've only had played 3 games on the year. I think that Michael Thomas, having been hurt for a little bit and coming back and then out again, I think he was somebody that plagued teams more often than not. I think if you were a guy that had CMC, you probably held him in a unusable roster spot anyway, dropped him or traded him because he was out so long. Whereas Michael Thomas, you never ever knew week in and week out because he was always questionable. Then you had the week where he missed with punching his own teammate. So there was a lot of in between there that you could say led him to be a bust, obviously taken in the first round in most leagues.
Well, the only thing that was a bust was his teammate's lip, apparently.
I would have to agree with you there.
All right, so we're going with a award that you kind of made up right before the show, and that well, not right before the show, but earlier today. And that was, we were taking the Comeback Player of the Year, expanding it a little bit, giving it its own name, and we went with the Alex Smith Comeback Player of the Year award. Kevin, I think it's fair to say who your pick is going to be.
Yeah, you got to give it to Alex Smith. I mean, 17 surgeries on his leg, life or death situation with the issues and the that he had throughout the whole process. 2 years off out of the league, almost had to have the leg amputated to come back and play, and then play well enough to start when healthy, and then push the team into the playoffs. I mean, I would have given it to him if he played 1 snap, just to come back from it. But to play well, I mean, you got to give it to him. You got to me, it's something that ended Joe Theismann, a even better quarterback, stronger build, in a day where you could hit the quarterback as much as you want whenever you wanted, to have that type of player and be built just in a different breed. His career end, same exact injury happened to Alex Smith, and to come back from it, kudos to him. I don't think there's anyone else that's even remotely close in anyone's mind.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is it's hard to kind of come up with a second place there, but the only person that comes to mind that could even touch or breathe on that award is Antonio Brown. He's been out of the league for 2 years. He had a chance with the Patriots, and then obviously just with getting in trouble and stuff, he didn't play. He didn't step on a field for 2 years, and then coming into this season, he was suspended for the first half of the season, signs with the Buccaneers, and then comes back. I believe he put up 108 points, fantasy points. And just like, if you think about it, 45 receptions, 483 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns, and that's just for half of the season. If you pretty much double that for a full season, you have a decent season there with 90 receptions, like 900 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Damien asked forward thinking, talking about 2021 season next year. Can we pencil Dak in for the award? And I don't think so. I think that when you look at the comeback player award usually goes to somebody that had a really bad season, came back and outperformed a whole ton, or is coming off of an injury, right?
It's like saying
So,
if Wentz came back, earned the starting job, and like took his
Right.
team to the playoffs, that would be.
but when I look at it and I look at the players to consider based on that criteria for next year, you're looking at Saquon Barkley, could be Zeke, could be Dak, could be CMC, could be Wentz. You just
Thomas.
never know. I don't think Dak is that good compared to the other players on the list and had been out as long or had as severe as injuries. You could put Joe Burrow in that same conversation. If he comes out next year and like having a half a season, been injured and having started so well, and the type of injury that he sustained. So, when you talk about penciling in anybody, I really don't think you could do it for Dak. I think this past season you could have did it with Alex Smith, knowing that he was working his way back into the league. Last year, pictures being leaked of him, throwing the ball around a little bit and actually having his legs still. So, I don't think the same can be done for Dak.
Who do you have for your Defense of the Year award, Kevin?
Giving it to a defense, we're not doing an individual player. I picked a whole team, which just so happens to have the interception leader on it is the Miami Dolphins, finishing at the 5th best as far as fantasy points go. Absolutely coming out of nowhere, stealing a lot of players off of other good teams. A few Patriots went down there to play Xavier Howard, but this comes after having a fire sale last year, right? I mean, last year looked like they didn't want anybody to be on the team and selling for picks. This year coming out, actually putting together a formidable defense and playing well enough to be in the top 5 and, make a playoff run or, push to be on the verge of a playoff team. For me, it's the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think it's completely crazy to see a team go 10-6 and still miss the playoffs. And I think that just goes to show how great the AFC is this season because of all the teams that were still in the hunt for it come week 17. And there were so many different teams that could have ended up in, so many teams that could have been knocked out. It's crazy.
And that's after adding an extra wild card spot and still missing at 10-6.
So for me, I'm going with a team who is kind of in the same predicament, I believe almost being knocked out of the playoffs, but pretty much known for their defense. Defense yawn. Well,
Damien, we're just getting people ready for next year's IDP. Got to pay attention to them at least a little bit.
Advertising his own league here.
Hey.
So my defense pick for this year is a team that's pretty much known for their defense, led in almost all the defensive stats that I have here, and that's going to be the Los Angeles Rams, leading in yards per game. Hey, don't hate on Aaron Donald. Don't hate on Jalen Ramsey. As much as I hate Ramsey, he's a decent player. But first in yards per game with 281. First in passing yards per game with only 190. Third in rushing yards per game with 91, behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, allowing only 80. And first in points per game with only 18.5 points. Because apparently you can score a half a point in a game.
Then we'll wrap up this last award fairly quick. We will bring in our coach, the man, as we move forward into the end of the show. Coach of the Year, Sean McDermott.
Adam Gase. Like, there's no question.
I mean, in my eyes, I would agree.
Okay, so Kevin, who do you have as your coach of the year?
McDermott.
Okay. Brian, who do you have as your coach of the year?
I'm sitting here thinking about it. You guys kind of put me on the spot. Talking to the wife yesterday, or we're watching a Buffalo game over the weekend. You guys all know that I've kind of flirted with the idea of giving up on my Jets, but not my Curtis Martin. Curtis Martin will always be number one in my heart, but giving up on the Jets. And it seemed like every week we had the conversation where I would say Josh Allen's dead to me or the Bills are dead to me. Must have been just the 3 losses that they had this year, because it was a quiet what does it work out to be, 12 or 13-3 season? Honestly, I thought it was a quiet 13-3 season. So McDermott's got to be the guy, I would think.
So, Brian, you kind of spoiled my my pick here for my coach of the year.
Was it going to be Adam Gase?
My coach of the year is Adam Gase.
Stop it.
You can look at my notes here. You can look at the script. I have Adam Gase put in there. It's very rare.
Doing so poorly and keeping his job.
Puke
So
emoji.
there's a bunch of things here. So I think it's amazing that a quarterback can sandbag a season and still lose the number 1 overall pick. And I think it is absolutely amazing to see all the coaches that have gotten fired over this season. It is amazing to see that he survived the whole season to the end of week 17 before being fired. To me, he is my coach of the year.
So I will say this. I think that was more of a contract thing than anything. He was going to be due the money anyways. And who are you going to really put in that spot as an interim that's on that team? You just got done firing the defensive coordinator. Who's left to put in that spot if you let Adam Gase go? Let him finish up the year. You're already sucking anyways. Maybe you were tanking. Maybe you weren't. The end of the season with him still doesn't make sense to me. I don't know why they gave up the number 1 pick like they did. Maybe even if it wasn't to go out and get a quarterback, right? Maybe if it wasn't for Trevor Lawrence, who I still don't think will be a good NFL quarterback. But why? Why did you do that? I don't understand.
I like what Kevin kind of mentioned earlier is that, pretty much they still think that Sam Darnold is their guy from what he said. And I think that the best thing that they should do is just to trade back for more picks.
I agree.
And I'm 100% going off of what he said earlier is just trade back and then just get more defenders, I would say, and maybe receivers.
Damien has a great point here. He says he should have been fired after he won that first game because he can't even suck correctly. I like that.
I mean, if you guys want, the stadium's only about an hour and a half, 2 hour with traffic. I'll go up and I'll step in.
It's the last time I was in your guys' area, I actually was in the New Jersey airport 8 years ago, roughly, we'll say. We were at home in Ohio. We were flying back to Hawaii. And think about this geographical-wise. We went from Ohio to Jersey, and then it was a nonstop flight from Jersey to Hawaii. So
you went in the stretch.
Right. But we had a huge layover while we were there. And I begged Misty, hey, let's grab a cab. Let's go out and go look at the Jets Giant Stadium. Can we do that? And then I started thinking, you know what? If we miss this flight to Hawaii, when are we going to get another one to be able to get home? So we decided not to. I sure would have liked to seen it, though.
Kevin, I got something you could do. Just drive up to East Rutherford and just fill out an application while you're up there.
I just might.
Coach of the year next year, Kevin Godwin.
You got it. So as we talk coaches and we bring in our fearless leader, Brian, why don't you tell everybody at home about what FSA has looking forward at our newly announced playoff challenge?
All right. So end of the season is behind us now as we're getting ready to go into the NFL playoff push. We're already done with all of the FSA playoffs as well. However, we do get involved in the NFL playoffs as we do the NFL playoff challenge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here for everybody to be able to see what we're talking about. We'll go full screen here. That way you can see it a little bit better. So NFL playoff challenge, we've done this for the last couple of years, and here's what you're doing. It is free to get into. What are you playing for at the end of this? You're playing for a free entry into the Fanatically Real Redraft League next year. So it is open to everybody. It's not just for FSA players. It is open to the general public. We have put on social media over the last couple of days the URL to be able to get you to this league and the password to be able to get into it. We'll show the URL up here a little bit closer if that's possible in a second. The password is going to be FSA 2020 to be able to get into it. All one word, if that's how you want to say it, FSA 2020. When you get there, if you do not already have an NFL.com account, you have to create one, and then you'll go in here to the FSA 2020 group. What I'll do now is I will see if I can zoom in even further. Nope, it's not going to blow it up anymore on the URL. The URL is playoffchallenge.fantasy.nfl.com/group /440405. Maybe you go back and listen to that again, or just go out on any of our social media platforms, because we've got it out there on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook right now. You can click on the link and get in there. The password again is FSA 2020, all in one word. So what is this NFL playoff challenge all about? So let's show you a little bit about how to play first. So you're going to start 8 players in this. It's going to be 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, kicker, and a whole team of defense. You're going to pick those players out of the players whose teams are involved in the NFL playoffs. You can already see, I think we had it scrolling across the bottom. Can somebody bring the schedule back up for me, rolling across the bottom of the screen there? These are the teams that are playing this week. And, of course, Green Bay and Kansas City are on bye this week. But that does not mean you cannot start Kansas City and Green Bay players, and here's why. After you've started those 8 players, for every week that they are in your lineup through the 4 weeks of the playoffs, you get multipliers for those players. So in the first week that you play them, all the points that they score are going to be times 1. If you keep that same player and roll them over into the next week, whatever points that they score in week 2 is going to get multiplied by 2. And it's cumulative all the way throughout this playoffs. So all of these points are going to count total for all 4 weeks. If they stay in your lineup for 3 weeks, you get a times 3. If you stay in there for 4 weeks, you get a times 4. You can start a player, a Kansas City or a Green Bay player this week while they're on buys. Why would you do that? Kevin asked me this earlier. Why would you do that? You're going to get 0 points for them in the first week, but you are guaranteed double points for every single one of them because they will be playing in week 2. So let's say you decided to pick Aaron Rodgers. He's going to have the bye. He gets 0 for his first week, and then they are already playing in the second round because they got a first round bye. You will get 2 times whatever he scores in the divisional round. If you keep him in there in his conference championship round, you get times 3. And if you have him in there for the Super Bowl, you're going to get times 4. You can at any time change your lineup. So let me show you a little bit about what a lineup is. First off, I want to show you something over here on the side here. Real foreshadowing for the future of FSA. This player card that you see right here with these points down here, and I'm going to show you what it looks like live. When you click on the little open and close status button here, you'll see what's down here in this second screen. This is how I would absolutely love to see FSA's layout look in a couple of years. So we're going to go over here. We're going to pull up my picks. These are not the picks that I have going for my team, just so you know, for this week. So any of you that are trying to beat me in this thing, this is not who I am picking. This is just who I put in there for an example for all of you. So in this case, you can see I have a lot of Green Bay and a lot of Kansas City players. So in this first week, I'm getting 0 points out of Mahomes, Aaron Jones, CEH, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. I'm also still only going to get the points for Tyler Bass and LA Rams for this round. If they get beat, they aren't there for me to pick in the second round, so I have to pick up a new player. All right. So once they're eliminated, you have to replace them. You can replace them. I don't want you to think that this is a start them and done. What NFL.com will do is it will advance your players to the next week if they won. That doesn't mean you need to keep them in there, though, either. You can swap out any players who won as well if you think they're not going to move on to the next round, because you're looking to try to put somebody else in that spot who you think is going to move on to the next round. That can get you a 2 or a 3 later on after you get past that first round. So that little information button that I was pointing at earlier, here's what this looks like when it pops up. It's going to tell you how many passing yards, touchdowns, interceptions that they have. In this case, it's going to say who are the most started, which you also can see right here on these things. So right now, Josh Allen is 39% start in week 1 so far for all of the people who have set lineups in all of the NFL.com playoff challenge games. Patrick Mahomes being number 2 at 28. But when you see the game start up and you come in here and you click on that information button, you'll see their stats for the game. Like I said, again, I would love to see that be a thing in FSA in years down the road. So as the points get tallied up, the score will come over here. This is your round 1. As you can see, all of the players are blank here because we don't know who's won or lost. If we already know that if I keep Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Jones, CEH, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce in there, all of these guys will roll over into week 2 for me automatically. And depending on how Tyler Bass and the LA Rams defense do, if they decided to stay in there, they would roll over as well. but you'll take the total points that you have for each one of these weeks, and then there's a cumulative total that will happen in each one of these. So what you'll see is this is what you got for round 1, this is what you got for round 2, and then your total points will be up here, score right here, and then your week score. So it'll show just what you got for the week and show what you've got overall so far. So what are you playing for again? You are playing for a free Fanatically Real redraft entry in 2021 for winning this. Now, so far, as you can see, there's 2 groups here. 2019, this is our group from last year, and what we've got so far for the 2020 season. We have been advertising the 2021 for 2 days now, and we've already are just 5 players short. I would actually like to say that there were 6 players short because somehow Kevin was able to get himself logged in there twice, which we're going to have to make sure that we get one of those teams eliminated out of there. But you already said that one of those teams is not working for you, right?
Yeah, the one team I had a connection issue when I tried to link my Facebook to my NFL account, which I never use since I only play on FSA now, and I don't play on NFL fantasy-wise. So it kind of created a ghost account, if you will.
So one of the things I want everybody to know is, and let me add this back up here. As you saw, I'll probably have to blow this up even more than what you're seeing now, and I will do that. As you saw those points that were over there, there are no decimal points in the NFL Playoff Challenge. Everything is whole points. So here is the scoring system. Rushing and receiving all touchdowns are 6 except for passing touchdowns. You're going to get 4. Field goals up to 53. Anything over 50 is going to be 5. 2-point conversions of 2. It is whole points for those yards. You have to get 10 yards. You have to get 25 yards passing before you get those points. You get points for extra points, fumbles, loss, interception. You can see the whole breakdown here. So if you want to know how you should be drafting your team, there it is. It's not like not drafting when you're selecting your players, because it's not like a draft. Everybody can start whoever they want every single week. For some crazy reason, if the 3 of us in this room all thought the same 8 players are going to be great for week 1 and we wanted to roll with them thinking that we're going to be all the way down to ×4 by the time this is done, we could have the exact same lineup. What would the tiebreaker be? I don't know, because in the, I think, 5 years that we've done this, we've never seen a tie, but never say never, because it always seems to happen in FSA, right? But if we have to, we'll just give out 2 free memberships for next year then, and not both of them to Kevin's 2 accounts.
I might even give you one better and not play for myself. We'll have to talk about it behind the scenes a bit, but I may, if I win, give away my membership to whoever can prove to me is shared FSA's page the most, or this show the most. So we'll let you know about that more next week.
2 years ago, I won it by a single point. Of course, I can't take that. I'm still paying for my membership every year. So what I ended up doing was giving it to the guy that was the 1 point behind me. That was Brian Lewis. So he played for free that year. And then Todd Spencer won it from the Great Lakes region. The Music City Miracles, the team that's in the Great Lakes region, won it last year. So it's out there. We've pushed it on social media already. If you can, please, if you're watching this, you would like to get involved, again, it's free. All you have to do is sign up for an NFL.com account. Follow that URL that we mentioned, or go out to all of our social medias. It's already out there. Password again is FSA 2020, and get involved. You're playing. It's a $50 entry next year, so you're getting something that's $50 value out of it, and it costs you nothing.
All right. Does that wrap it all up from us, guys?
That is all I had.
All right. So let's head on out of here. So before we return for our regularly scheduled Average Bros Fantasy Show next week on the 12th at 8 p.m., go and check out my average brother Kevin and our stat guy Brian tomorrow night on the Fanatically Real broadcast at 8:30 p.m. on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitter. And if you can't watch us live, you guys can catch us on Anchor or Apple Podcasts. There's a bunch of different places that you guys can catch us. After that, you guys can get the Empty Wagon guys on Saturday morning, depending on where you are, Friday night, Saturday morning at midnight Eastern time. And are we doing the happy hour on Sunday?
Sure, we'll do happy hour on Sunday. What we'll do is we'll do an update of where everybody's at in this playoff challenge throughout it. We'll talk more about what the rest of the schedule for the Fanatic Real broadcast and happy hour looks like on tomorrow night's show.
Okay, so happy hour is on, and I believe that will be between Cleveland and Pittsburgh on Sunday night. And then after that, you can catch the Empty Wagon guys on Monday morning if they are doing a show Monday morning.
We still haven't confirmed yet. I know that they are going to do a show this week. I don't know if it's going to be a Friday or a Sunday show or both. We will find out. I'll find out before the Fanatic Real broadcast tomorrow, and we'll let everybody know.
Okay. And as always, we would like to thank you for watching the Average Roast Fantasy Show, sponsored by Football Darts and Fantasy Sports Alliance. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on all of our social media outlets, as you see down here at the bottom of the screen real quick. And before we head out, we would like to thank all of our sponsors. We have QB54, our Arm and Leg League sponsor, Football Darts, our broadcast sponsor, Nature Coast Tailgating, our World Championship sponsor, and then all of our bowl sponsors, Finger Lakes Mercantile, Cranky Veteran Candle Company, Southern Sirens Sugar Scrub, and Deep South Creations, and of course the Recasts, who are the official music of the FSA. Both of you average and above average guys. Do you have anything?
That's the above average guy right there. Appreciate you guys having me on the show tonight. Thanks for letting me pitch the playoff challenge.
Of course, we want to spread the word as much as we can.
Cool. Appreciate it.
Kevin, any final words?
That's it for me. Brian, I will see you tomorrow. And everybody else, have a wonderful night.
Remember, kickers are people too.